For thousands of years, sunchokes fed communities from icy prairies to poor soils, regenerating from fragments smaller than a coin. But in today's industrial fields, what was once a survival crop is now labeled a crisis. How did a food so resilient become the plant farmers fear most? The answer upends everything we think we know about control, abundance, and why sunchokes were never a problem until now. Archaeological evidence traces human management of sunchokes back more than 5,000 years across Central and Eastern North America. Long before the arrival of European settlers, indigenous communities cultivated these tubers in established patches near villages, treating them as a perennial staple rather than a wild weed. Samuel de Champlain's account from 1605 describes Abenaki fields on Cape Cod, where sunchokes grew alongside beans, squash, and tobacco, an intentional polyculture designed for resilience and abundance. The Cree and Wendat peoples called them askipaw, or skibwan, harvesting tubers for raw eating and winter storage. Early agricultural systems relied on selective harvest. Families dug only what they needed, leaving smaller tubers and fragments in the ground to ensure next year's growth. This practice kept food available through lean seasons and drought, while preventing the runaway spread that now alarms modern farmers. As the plant's reputation traveled, sunchokes reached Europe in the early 17th century. They were introduced to France by Champlain around 1607, then spread to England, Italy, and Germany within 2 decades. For a time, they were considered a reliable vegetable and livestock feed, valued for their ability to thrive where other crops failed. The historical record shows a crop managed by design, not accident, a plant woven into the fabric of diverse, low-input food systems. The problem was never the sunchoke itself, but how people chose to work with it. Today's warnings about invasiveness overlook centuries of stewardship, where the plant's persistence was a feature, not a flaw. Sunchokes possess a biological tenacity that sets them apart from most cultivated crops. Their survival hinges on one simple trait: the ability to regenerate from even the smallest tuber fragment left in the soil. A piece no larger than a coin, buried or scattered during harvest, can restart an entire patch the following spring. This vegetative propagation means that, unlike seed-based crops, sunchokes do not rely on careful planting each year. Instead, they persist underground, sending up new shoots season after season, regardless of whether the field is tended or abandoned. Their resilience extends beyond regeneration. Sunchokes tolerate a range of environmental extremes that would cripple most staple crops. Tubers survive freezing temperatures as low as -30 degrees Celsius, allowing them to overwinter in regions where other roots would perish. Poor, sandy, or compacted soils pose little threat. The plant's robust root system finds nutrients and moisture where others cannot. Drought slows their growth, but rarely kills them, and even after a failed harvest or a season of neglect, they reappear when conditions improve. This extraordinary hardiness once made sunchokes a reliable food source during unpredictable weather or famine. Today, it creates a management challenge. Attempts to remove the plant often backfire, as tilling or digging breaks tubers into more fragments, each capable of regrowing. The very features that protected communities from hunger now frustrate efforts to confine the crop within modern, mechanized systems. Sunchokes do not simply survive adversity, they thrive on it, refusing to disappear when other crops fail. On a modern farm, the decision to use heavy machinery comes with an unspoken risk. When a harvester rolls through a sunchoke field, the machine's blades and conveyors do more than lift tubers, they shatter them. Each pass breaks knobby roots into dozens of fragments, some smaller than a coin, scattering viable pieces throughout the soil. Studies on similar crops show that up to 30% of tubers can be damaged during a single harvest, with as much as 40% of the resulting fragments small enough to slip through screens and settle unnoticed. In wet or clay-heavy soil, the problem intensifies. A farmer pushing for speed, trying to finish before the weather turns, finds that faster equipment leaves behind even more pieces. Every fragment, even those under 2 centimeters, can sprout a new plant come spring. The result is a field seeded not just for the next harvest, but for years of relentless regrowth. For many farmers, one season's crop becomes a multi-year infestation. The equipment that promises efficiency instead guarantees future headaches. Volunteer sunchokes pop up in rotation crops, complicating weed control and risking contamination of contracts. The frustration is personal. You think you're clearing the field, but you're just planting next year's problem. The mismatch between plant biology and machine design turns a reliable food source into a persistent adversary, setting the stage for rising costs and lost control over the land. In the world of commodity agriculture, a crop that produces food without annual seed purchases or constant chemical inputs can trigger alarm. Sunchokes challenge the core assumptions of modern farm economics. In documented field trials, yields have reached as high as 35,000 pounds per acre, matching or surpassing commercial potatoes, but achieved with less fertilizer, minimal irrigation, and no yearly seed bill. Every tuber left in the soil becomes next year's planting stock, making the need for outside seed companies almost irrelevant. For farmers locked into contracts, credit cycles, and input supply chains, this kind of abundance is more threat than promise. The crop's reliability, its refusal to fail, breaks the pattern that keeps commodity markets stable. When sunchokes flooded the market during the biofuel and fructose booms of the 1980s, prices crashed overnight. Growers who had invested in new equipment and planted large acreages found themselves with mountains of unsold tubers and no buyers. The market could not absorb a crop that kept coming back, year after year, without permission or purchase orders. A trade analyst puts it plainly: commodity systems are built on predictability and control. A crop that produces high yields without inputs undermines the entire business model. The economic shock is not just about surplus. It is about a perennial tuber that refuses to play by the rules, one that exposes how fragile and dependent the system really is. Across Europe and parts of Canada, sunchokes appear on official invasive species lists, transforming a once valued crop into a regulatory headache. In Poland and Germany, nature conservation laws require land managers to control or eradicate Helianthus tuberosus, especially near rivers and protected habitats. In Ontario, extension bulletins warn of its spread in moist meadows, while provincial weed acts stop short of placing it on the highest noxious weed tier. In the United States, there is no federal ban, but state and county advisories flag sunchokes as a persistent problem for contract growers and landowners. For farmers leasing land or relying on subsidies, these listings mean more than paperwork. They can trigger fines, jeopardize access to conservation payments, and threaten contract renewals. An extension agronomist puts it plainly: the invasive label often signals management cost and legal risk, not ecological disaster. What was once a food security asset now carries the weight of compliance and liability. Underground, sunchokes form a living pantry that defies confiscation, rot, and even fire. In times of war, famine, or failed harvest, these tubers have resurfaced as a last line of defense against hunger. When fields lay abandoned or borders shifted, sunchokes remained, untouched beneath the soil, waiting for desperate hands. Their ability to regenerate after disaster makes them a silent indicator of crisis, flourishing when systems above ground collapse. The same trait that once protected communities now serves as a warning. In every era of upheaval, the plants most likely to endure are those we have tried hardest to control. Sunchokes thrive in the shadows of broken supply chains, reminding us that abundance can be a threat to the order we depend on. Today, sunchokes remain legally restricted in parts of Europe and shunned by industrial farms, despite thriving where other crops fail. As food systems face rising instability, the question is no longer whether we can control abundance, but if we can afford to keep fearing it. What do you think?